The Cowboys just played chess while everyone else played checkers in round one of the draft, and the behind-the-scenes intel that just leaked is absolutely wild. Before we dive into this, hit that subscribe button right now, because I need your help growing this channel, and we're bringing you Cowboys news the absolute second it breaks. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next around here. So, let's get into what really went down when Dallas shocked everyone and handed Philadelphia that trade to move up 3 spots. And yeah, I said handed, but stick with me, because this is not what you think. And the crazy part is, the Cowboys might have just executed one of the slicker draft day moves we've seen in years. Here's what happened. Dallas is sitting there at pick 20, they've got their board set, they know exactly who they want, and all of a sudden they get wind that Pittsburgh is already on the phone with Mai Lemon while they're on the clock, which, by the way, is a huge no-no in the league. And it's actually being investigated by the NFL right now. The Steelers were hosting the draft, they're the big show in town, and they got absolutely embarrassed because they never even thought to call Dallas about trading up because they didn't think the Cowboys were interested in Mai Lemon at all. So Pittsburgh just assumed they'd sit pretty and take him at 23 without any competition. But here's where it gets good. The moment Dallas found out Pittsburgh was already tampering with Mai Lemon before they were even allowed to, Jerry Jones and the front office got on the phone with Philadelphia immediately. And Philly overpaid like crazy to jump up those 3 spots and snag Mai Lemon right out from under the Steelers, and Dallas walked away with pick 114, which became Dion Moore, and pick 137, which became LT Overton, basically 2 extra players in the top 140 for moving back just 3 spots. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. How could the Cowboys help a division rival get a player like that? Why would you ever make a trade with the Eagles? And honestly, I get the emotion behind that reaction, but let me ask you this. How could the Eagles help the Cowboys get 2 more quality picks in this draft? The trade value chart says Dallas won this deal, they got more than they gave up, and unless we're talking about a franchise quarterback, I have zero problem trading with anyone in the division, because it's just draft capital, and if you win the value game, you win the trade period. Jerry Jones actually had one of his all-time quotes when someone asked him about this. He said something like, "If I eliminated every team I want to beat, you wouldn't have anybody left to trade with." And you know what? Jerry's absolutely right on this one, and it doesn't happen often where I'm saying that, but this time he nailed it. The only scenario where I'm telling Philly to kick rocks is if they're trying to trade up for a quarterback. I will not help a division rival get a potential franchise signal caller unless I'm 100% convinced that guy is a bust. And I'm talking like when the Eagles traded Donovan McNabb to Washington years ago, level of convinced, otherwise it's fair game, and you take the best value you can get. So, would you have made that trade? Are you okay with Dallas working a deal with Philadelphia in the draft? Let me know in the comments if you're team yes or team no, because I'm genuinely curious where the fan base stands on this. But here's what nobody is talking about. The intel that just came out about who the Cowboys were actually targeting at picks 20 and 23 is fascinating, and it's going to change how you view this entire draft strategy. According to league insiders and reports that just dropped, Dallas was locked in on 2 players when they were on the clock after the trade down, and despite what rival teams thought, Kelrick Falk was not one of those guys under consideration at all, not even close. In fact, one report from draft weekend said that if Malachi Lawrence had been taken before Dallas picked, the Cowboys were going to take CJ Allen at linebacker, not Kelrick Falk. Not any of the other backers people were mocking to them. It was going to be CJ Allen straight up. And by the way, it sounds like in general, Abdul Mudad was not ahead of Malachi Lawrence on the Cowboys board either. Lawrence was their top remaining edge rusher when they were sitting there at 23, and that's who they wanted all along. This was a Christian Parker pick through and through. Parker is the defensive line coach, and clearly he was pounding the table for Lawrence in that draft room. And look, I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit lower on Malachi Lawrence than some other people in the draft community, not because I didn't think he had talent, but because I wanted to see more consistency in how he fired off the ball and maximized his crazy athletic tools. I had him graded the same as a lot of the other edge rushers in that second-round range, but When you've got 17 to 52 players all bunched together with similar grades, it comes down to how you stack and value them differently. And for me, Lawrence was more of a late first, early second guy, which is pretty much exactly where he went, so I can't say I'm shocked. The key thing here is the Cowboys clearly had him valued higher than that. They were willing to take him at 20 before the trade, and they were thrilled to get him at 23 after moving back. So the coaching staff believes they got their guy, and a defense that desperately needs edge rush help. That's music to my ears, even if I was slightly more cautious on him than the consensus. Now let's talk about the player that almost became a nightmare for us twice a year, Caleb DS, the corner out of LSU, who ended up going to the Giants. And the intel that just leaked shows how close we came to facing this dude in a Washington uniform 4 times over the next few years. One recent report said that the Commanders were zeroed in on Sonny Styles at pick 7, but if Styles had been off the board already, Washington was going to take Caleb DS or Mansour Delane as their fallback options. And thank goodness it didn't play out that way, because I would have been absolutely miserable watching Caleb DS lock down receivers twice a year in our division. I guess in the end it's actually a good thing that the top 4 picks didn't include Ariel Reese, because that pushed the Giants to take their defensive player earlier, which helped Sonny Styles fall to the Commanders at 7, and that kept DS out of Washington, which is a win for us, even if the Giants ended up with him instead. But here's the thing. I am still incredibly excited about the idea of DS to Dallas long-term if the Cowboys ever get a shot at a corner of that caliber, and if you're in the same boat as me and you think Dallas needs to be aggressive about finding shutdown corner talent, type me in the comments right now and let me know you're with me on this. Let's shift gears to the 4th round, because the Cowboys front office and coaching staff are apparently going absolutely crazy over Drew Shelton, the offensive tackle out of Penn State, and the buzz coming out of the building is that some people inside the organization were pounding the table for Shelton as early as day 2. One team source told a reporter recently that only so few humans can play tackle in the NFL, and Drew Shelton is one of them. Super athletic, and the coaching staff is sky high on his ceiling as a player, which is the kind of internal hype you love to hear about a 4th-round investment. Now I'll be real with you, Shelton's final season at Penn State was a bit disappointing compared to what some of us were hoping for. He only gave up 1 sack, which is great, but the pressure numbers were a little higher than ideal, and I was expecting him to be more impactful overall as a senior, but the athletic traits are absolutely there, and it sounds like offensive line coach Clayton Adams in particular thinks he can unlock something special as Shelton develops and continues to grow into his frame. This is the kind of pick where Dallas clearly had him graded as a late 3rd, early 4th round guy. There's not a massive difference in value there, and they were thrilled he fell to them in the 4th because they had him rated way higher than where he actually went. I don't think Shelton is going to play a huge role in year 1, and frankly, you probably don't want him to, because that would mean something bad happened with Tyler Gayton or Terrence Steele, but I could absolutely see him becoming the number 3 offensive tackle on the depth chart sooner rather than later. And if Gayton can't stay healthy or struggles in his transition, then you might have to press Shelton into real playing time faster than expected. For a 4th-round pick, that's a pretty solid outcome. You want the guy to have real backup tackle upside with a chance to develop into a starter down the line, and it sounds like the Cowboys genuinely believe that's the trajectory he's on. So let me ask you, do you think Drew Shelton becomes a starter eventually, or is he more of a high-end backup? Drop an S in the comments if you think he starts, and a B if you think backup is his ceiling. I'm genuinely curious where you all land on this. And the crazy part is, there's one more piece of draft intel that just came out, and it's about the wide receiver position, which nearly gave all of us a heart attack when rumors started flying that Dallas might trade up for Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State. And according to one insider report, the Cowboys were legitimately high on Tyson when they set their draft board. It sounds like Tyson was pretty high on their overall player rankings just based on talent and value. But in hindsight, I don't think the Cowboys were ever actually going to trade up for a receiver, and thank God for that. because we would have lost our minds if they gave up draft capital to jump up when they had other needs to address. Here's the interesting wrinkle, though. The same report mentioned that the threat of Dallas taking a receiver high might have played a role in George Pickens agreeing to sign his franchise tag just hours before the draft. And while it's hard to know for certain if that's true, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. But here's what I mean when I say this feels far from over with the Pickens situation, because even though he signed the tag, it doesn't mean everything is settled long-term, not even close. Short-term, the available moves for Pickens are really limited now. He has almost no leverage over a potential trade or negotiating a long-term deal, because once you sign that franchise tag, it can't be rescinded. But do we really think the Cowboys were going to rescind the tag with no other viable number 2 receiver option? I don't think that was ever on the table. Long-term, though, this is absolutely not over. There's no extension in place. Pickens is probably going to play this year on the tag, and then we're right back in the same situation next offseason, trying to figure out if he's part of the future or if Dallas needs to move on. And that's the kind of uncertainty that can linger and become a distraction if it's not handled right. The good news is the Cowboys didn't panic and trade up for Tyson. He wasn't going to make it to pick 12 anyway because the Chiefs and the Saints and the Giants all had him on their radar. So it would have cost a ton to go get him, and it just didn't make sense with how the board was falling. The trade down with Philly ended up working out great because Dallas got more picks. They still got their guy in Malachi Lawrence, and they didn't reach for a receiver just to fill a need. That's smart, disciplined drafting, and it's exactly what this team needed to do after some of the chaos we've seen in recent offseason. But here's where the Cowboys are right now heading into the season. They've added edge rush help with Lawrence. They've got depth on the offensive line with Shelton. They grabbed Dion Moore and LT Overton with those extra picks from the Philly trade. And they didn't mortgage the future by trading up or making a desperation move. That's a solid foundation to build on. The question now is whether these guys can come in and contribute right away, because this roster is built to win now with Dak and CeeDee and Micah in their primes. And if Lawrence can get after the quarterback and Moore and Overton can provide quality depth, then this draft class is going to pay off fast. And look, I know some of you are still skeptical about trading with the Eagles. I get it. The division rivalry runs deep, and the idea of helping Philly get a player stings a little. But at the end of the day, Dallas walked away with more value, and that's what matters in the draft. You can't let emotion cloud your judgment when you're trying to build a championship roster. The front office did exactly what they should have done. They took advantage of a desperate team willing to overpay. They grabbed their guys, and they added depth to a roster that desperately needed it. And if that means Philly got Mai Lemon in the process, then so be it, because we got 2 extra players who can help us beat them when it counts. The Drew Shelton hype from inside the building is real, and it tells you that the coaching staff sees something special in his development curve. And when you've got Clayton Adams working with offensive linemen, you have to trust that he knows what he's doing, because he's been one of the better position coaches in the league at maximizing talent. If Adams is pumped about Shelton, then I'm willing to buy in and see what this kid can become over the next year or two. Worst case scenario, you've got a quality backup tackle on a cheap rookie deal. Best case scenario, you've got a future starter who can protect Dak's blind side for the next decade. That's the kind of upside you're hunting for on day 2 and day 3 of the draft. The Caleb Diaz stuff is interesting because it shows you how much chaos is happening behind the scenes. Teams are jockeying for position and making contingency plans based on who falls where. And the fact that Washington was ready to pivot to Diaz if Styles was gone shows you how fluid these draft boards are in real time. Dallas dodged a bullet not having to face Diaz twice a year in a Commander's uniform. But the Giants still got a good player, and that's the reality of drafting in the NFC East. Everybody is trying to get better, and you're going to see division rivals grab talent that makes your life harder. The key is making sure you're grabbing better talent and putting your guys in position to win. The Malachi Lawrence pick is going to be fascinating to watch because this is Christian Parker's guy. Parker coached him up and wanted him in that draft room. And now we get to see if Parker was right about his ability to develop into an elite edge rusher at the NFL level. Lawrence has all the tools, the length, the explosiveness, the bend around the edge, but he needs to be more consistent firing off the ball and turning those tools into production every single snap. And if Parker can coach that into him, then Dallas just got a steal at 23. The fact that the Cowboys would have taken C.J. Allen if Lawrence was gone tells you they were prioritizing defense in the first round no matter what. And that makes sense when you look at how the defense struggled last year, especially rushing the passer and stopping the run. This team needed an infusion of talent on that side of the ball, and they went out and got it. And here's the thing about the Jordyn Tyson situation. The Cowboys were high on him, but they didn't let that turn into a panic move. They stuck to their board and trusted the process. And even though the receiver position is still a question mark behind CD, they didn't force it by giving up assets to trade up. That's growth from a front office that has made some head-scratching moves in the past, and it shows that maybe they're learning from their mistakes and approaching the draft with a more disciplined long-term mindset. And if that's the case, then this is the kind of foundation you can build a championship team on. The Pickens franchise tag drama is going to be something to monitor all season, because if he balls out and plays at an elite level, then Dallas is going to have to pay him big money next offseason. But if he's just solid, or if there's any kind of drama or distraction, then maybe the Cowboys look to move on and find a younger, cheaper option. Either way, it's a storyline that's not going away anytime soon. What I love about this draft class so far is the combination of immediate need and long-term development. Lawrence can help right away rushing the passer, Shelton is a project with starter upside, and Moore and Overton give you depth and competition in camp. That's exactly what you want from a draft haul, especially when you're a team that's trying to compete for a Super Bowl right now. The trade with Philadelphia is always going to be debated by the fan base, and that's fine. Healthy debate is part of what makes being a Cowboys fan so much fun. But from a pure value standpoint, Dallas won that trade and set themselves up with more ammunition to build the roster. And at the end of the day, that's what the draft is all about. Accumulating talent and giving your coaching staff the best possible chance to win games. If you've made it this far in the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button one more time because we're grinding every single day to bring you the best Cowboys content on YouTube. And I need your support to keep growing this channel and bringing you the news and analysis you deserve as a fan of this team. So here's my final take on all of this. The Cowboys played the draft smart. They didn't panic. They added talent on defense. They got depth on the offensive line. And they set themselves up for success both in the short term and the long term. And while there are still questions to answer, especially at receiver and in the secondary, this draft was a step in the right direction. The intel that's leaking out now gives us a glimpse into how the front office was thinking, and it's clear they had a plan, and they stuck to it even when things got chaotic. And that's the kind of steady leadership you need in the war room if you want to build a winner. Drew Shelton might end up being one of the steals of this draft if Clayton Adams can develop him the way the coaching staff believes he can. And Malachi Lawrence has all the tools to be a game wrecker off the edge if Christian Parker can unlock his consistency. Those are two picks that could define this class and change the trajectory of the roster over the next few years. The fact that Dallas almost had to deal with Caleb Diaz in a Washington uniform twice a year is a reminder of how close these draft decisions are and how much luck and timing play into building a team. But in the end, the Cowboys got the guys they wanted and avoided some potential nightmares. And that's about all you can ask for. The George Pickens situation is still unresolved and it's going to be a storyline all season. But for now, he's under contract and he's going to play. And if he produces at a high level, then maybe Dallas finds a way to extend him. Or maybe they let him walk and reload at receiver in next year's draft. Either way, it's a decision that's coming down the pipeline. So let me know in the comments what you think. Are you fired up about this draft class? Do you think Dallas made the right moves? Are you okay with the trade with Philly? And do you believe Drew Shelton and Malachi Lawrence are going to be impact players for this team? I want to hear your takes. and I want to know what you're most excited about heading into the season. This is the kind of draft that can set a franchise up for sustained success if the picks hit. And while we won't know for a couple years how good this class really is, the early intel and the buzz coming out of the building is all positive, and that's reason for optimism as we head into training camp and get ready for another run at a championship. So drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's ride with this Cowboys team through whatever comes next because it's going to be one hell of a season.